This is just an airstrike now that you've heard. It seems that it's very close here from the area of where we are. We're at El Yarmouk neighborhood. I'm taking cover. I won't be in front of the camera. Yes, the bombardment is not, it's not exactly where we are, but it's very close of where we are. You can see this is a very densely populated neighborhood. This mosque here just in front of you was bombarded at 12 a.m. Local time, Gaza, last night. This is the fourth mosque to be bombarded in the Gaza Strip. And also, I'm going to ask the camera to go around and show you the homes that are adjacent to this mosque, how they have been severely destroyed with the targeting of the mosque.
Well, that was a video clip showing Youmna El-Sayed, and this is who we are talking to right now. We're talking about the media and humanitarian journalism tour with award-winning Al Jazeera journalist Youmna El-Sayed as a guest of Salam Media. Now, often as media personalities, sometimes we actually become desensitized. We get overwhelmed by statistics, by numbers, and often we don't know what lies behind that statistic, what lies behind that number. Just around a year ago, I recall doing an interview where hundreds of children from Gaza had achieved over 90% in their exams. The question I want to ask is, where are those children right now? Those are children that had dreams, they had ambitions, they wanted to be someone in life. How many of them are alive? How many of them are not? And this is when reality actually hits home. And this is the reason why Youmna Sayed, in her own words, has pursued journalism as a desire and a passion rather than a component of her academic education. And the only thing that keeps her standing is the suffering she's seeing being a journalist in Gaza. Sister Youmna El-Sayed, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome.
Wa alaikum assalam. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
Well, clearly, we are excited. In about 2 weeks from now, you will be landing in South Africa and at Salam Media with our humanitarian journalism ethos. In fact, it couldn't come at a better time. And having someone of your profile, your caliber, we certainly are excited. Looking forward to having you here.
Honestly, the pleasure is mine. It's a true honor and pleasure to be in South Africa, to be among the people of South Africa. The stances of South Africa during this genocide have been unprecedented. We can't feel the delight or happiness enough that there is actually a nation and a government rather than just a nation, because we see a lot of nations, but governments acting legally and with a true stance to actually stand with Palestine, to stand with the justice, and to stand against the injustices that the Palestinian people are subjected to. This is a great thing, especially at these times that we live through. And journalism, which has been completely shaped according to different agendas, it has been greatly politicized, as we can see nowadays, for these few journalism organizations that are still following the integrity of journalism in their journalism work. This is very much appreciated. And of course, as I can see and follow, Salam Media is one of these very few journalism organizations in our days today.
Well, you mentioned integrity of journalists, and I'm sure, many of your colleagues obviously have fallen. Many have been martyred. And it's not easy to deal with a situation where we see hundreds of journalists obviously have been killed as a result of this genocide that has been unfolding. And this is sometimes, and I mentioned, we become desensitized by the numbers. But it is only when you are there, when you've known the person personally. And the example that I cited was what hit really home to me is I did this interview over a year ago on this great achievement of the students of Gaza. And the writer I had spoken to, I learned a few months later that she was martyred as well. And that is when reality actually hits home. This is when your humanity comes out. And this is when you tell people that these are people that have not had a voice. And I would want to become, or I want to become, the voice of these voiceless people.
Well, that's true because honestly, being or coming out from Gaza, especially during this genocide and covering this genocide, even if it was just for 3 months, uh, what you see on your screens, because I'm a journalist and I do these stories and I cover these events, and honestly, I feel that screens don't show the amount of catastrophe and tragedy that people are really living through in the Gaza Strip. They don't show you the daily details. They don't tell you or show you the amount of suffering. When people get to the point, all you see on your screens is that there is a strike. You can see the casualties from that strike. You can see those killed and those injured and those mourning their loved ones, the destruction around. But then the details, that's when the camera ends and the scene ends for the viewers. But then the people themselves live every terrifying detail of those details on a daily basis. Those details don't just end by the end of that picture, and that is what people don't really realize. And this is what I always try to speak about, try to make people understand that the suffering does not just end there. I mean, you're talking about one student who was celebrating uh, her
Her
success
results.
last year and her results. But this, for an entire year, last year, over 625,000 children in the Gaza Strip lost a complete academic year. None of them went to school. We're talking about from kindergarten or preschool until university. Now, this year, those who have been able to come out of Gaza and those who are still in Gaza have also are on the doors of a beginning academic year, and they don't know what is going to happen. Of course, those that are in Gaza are not going to be able to go to school. They're going to lose another academic year. Those who are in exile, okay, in countries like Egypt, for example, they're not granted any rights to go to school. They're not granted any residencies. So Palestinian children, who are over 180,000 Palestinians that have come out from the Gaza Strip during these 10 months of genocide, those children are not able to go to school in Egypt, for example. Those who do not have dual nationalities and are not residing in other countries are not able to go to school because basically they have no residency, they have no study or educational permits in Egypt, for example, to go to school. So this is another injustice that is just being added to the many injustices that the Palestinian people are subjected to. They are imposed on them, and there is a huge amount of complicity by the entire world, not just by Israel or the occupation of Israel on the Palestinian people. And as I always say, this genocide represents an occupation that the occupation is the main headline or main title, and this occupation is being implemented through the slaughter of the native people of the lands, the confiscation of the Palestinian lands, and the ethnic cleansing of the population. And this is what we see for the past 70 years and is greatly being implemented in this genocide in Gaza.
Well, it certainly is. And also, at the end of the day, it's about silencing the voices for those who want to speak out for the voiceless. And this is where we'd like to come in with regard to journalists and those that have fallen. Because these were people like yourself who would have told those stories, would have been the voice of the voiceless as well. And sadly, they no longer here as well. And as you mentioned, that this is not only about the Israeli occupation and the brutality and the genocide that is unfolding. An entire world is watching, and the entire world should have been told the stories. And sadly, there are very few like yourselves that are now left standing to tell these stories, Yumna.
Well, journalism has a very strong role in reporting and informing the people around the world. And it is not fair. It is not fair at all. And it's not even part of the journalism ethics that we would uh, uh, categorize journalists, whether their stories or narratives are credible or non credible. According to their nationalities. So the way I see it is that this is what Western world of journalism has been designing how they would respond to the news that is coming out of Gaza, whether it's credible or not enough or not, because it's coming out of Palestinian journalists when at the same place or in this from the beginning these international and Western journalists were suppressed by Israel. They were oppressed by Israel, and they were declined from entering the Gaza Strip to pursue and to do their natural work and job as journalists to inform the world. So we had to take that burden as Palestinian journalists ourselves, despite all the challenges and sufferings that we have been living through all these past months. Over 161 Palestinian journalists have been killed in the Gaza Strip since the beginning of this genocide. Over 1,500 more are still working under immense challenges. What Palestinian journalists have done is they have changed, or they have turned all these challenges and sufferings to a motivation to keep them going on. And this is what I always say. It's not just the professional loyalty to your work, it is the loyalty to your people, because basically, as a Palestinian journalist, you are reporting about your own people. You are reporting about your own land, about your families, about your neighborhoods. This is how the situation is. Every single person in Gaza that you are talking about or you are reporting about someone that you know. It is not someone that you've never met before or you've never seen, especially with the forced evacuations that were made in the Gaza Strip through different cities. Many evacuees from the north in Gaza City were in the south. Us, ourselves, as journalists, we had to evacuate from the north, from Gaza City to the south, and so did our families and relatives. And that's why when I say that we report about our own families, it's true. It's literally true.
Yes, and also I think what you're saying is the motivation that keeps you going, and I'm sure during your tour to South Africa, that motivation is going to feature very, very prominently and profoundly as well. And this is exactly what this tour is going to be about, because this is a statement that you also make: is the only thing that keeps you standing is the suffering that you're seeing being a journalist in Gaza, but also at the same time some of the dangerous situations, the hairy moments that you found yourself in as well, with that video clip that we had played earlier, Yumna.
Yes, well, that's true, because I have made it my job, or a part of my loyalty, to speak about, not just to inform from inside Gaza, but to speak about Gaza and to speak about the suffering of the people and to speak about the challenges and this genocide even out of Gaza. And to be honest with you, for so many days when I came out of Gaza, I was eaten by a survival guilt that I survived. I came out of Gaza, I was able to leave, and I was able to survive, while thousands more, whether from my colleagues, whether from my family, whether from my friends and neighbors, were not able to leave. And that's why I put it in front of me. I put it as a motivation that more people should know around the world, because the support of the people is very important, because this support of the people is what can change the reality of the situation and the suffering of the Palestinian people. Their support can pressure their governments to start pressuring Israel to start implementing those international laws and humanitarian laws that were designed to put this world in order, but because of the very obvious double standards of these countries, these international laws and humanitarian laws are no more being implemented when it comes to Israel and the Palestinian people against each other.
Yes, and also at the same time, Yumna, you would be perfectly placed to relay to the world, to tell the world, and even during your tour here in South Africa, as to who the Palestinian people truly are, what they are made of in terms of how resolute they've been, considering the oceans of injustices that have been perpetrated not only during this genocide, but over decades that have been perpetrated against the people of Palestine. And I think to an extent, the world is coming to terms and to understand who the people of Palestine really are.
Yes, that's true. I mean, one of the really motivations that actually motivated me to pursue my dream in journalism was when I first moved to the Gaza Strip in 2014, and how much I felt that this territory has been completely abandoned, and all we hear in the news are very little amount of news about the Palestinian people themselves. Sometimes we never heard anything about the Gaza Strip unless there is a huge war or a huge conflict. But other than that, there were no stories of life about the Palestinian people in the Gaza Strip, in the West Bank. It was basically all the conflicts that people heard about, the major conflicts, the major wars. And this is something that I really wanted to change the perspective about Palestine, about Gaza in particular, about the people of Palestine, and how other people of this world must see them, and why they are forced to be seen in or with a particular image or a particular or in a particular way.
Yes, Yumna, just ahead of your tour now, just around 2 weeks to go. I'm sure you are equally excited to come to South Africa. And what message would you like to give to the people of South Africa ahead of your tour?
I'm very excited, honestly, to meet with so many people, to meet with everyone. I'm excited to speak to them. I'm excited to hear out their questions, to hear out about their inquiries. I'm very excited to answer questions, because I know that every time I go somewhere and people ask me all these sorts of questions, that sometimes I feel that it means that they know too little about what is happening in Gaza, about how life is in Gaza. And this is really a beautiful thing that they are interested about knowing. I want the people of South Africa to continue their support. I want them to continue their fight, because nations that have been through such apartheid like we are living for 70 years now, they know very much. And I've also said this in Bosnia, because such nations who have gone through such sufferings can very much relate to us, and we can relate to them. They will be the closest to hear us, to feel us, to know what is going on with us. And that's why we need the strong support of such nations like the South African nation, like the South African people. And it is an amazing stance that has been unprecedented, that the government of South Africa had stood with Palestine during the past month. But we need that to continue. We need more governments to do the same like the South African government. And then sometimes just takes one person or one government to begin while the others follow.
Well, Yumna, we certainly are excited as well, and we're looking forward to you coming down to South Africa as well. And I suppose, there's just so much value that you're going to be adding, not only from a journalistic perspective, but a lot more that you will be bringing through to your tour. And I must say, there's a lot of excitement that is building up. Yeah, we've had many, many inquiries already in terms of hosting you, yeah, in South Africa. So I'm sure it's going to be a wonderful tour, inshallah. And personally, for me, I'm looking forward to this. Having entered the media space just around 9/11 and having witnessed every single atrocity since then. You mentioned Bosnia as well, but there's just so much that has taken place in the last 20 odd years, really. So for me personally, really, it's a very, very special moment that you will be coming here to South Africa. So inshallah, looking forward to that and wish you all the best.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And I'm really looking forward to be among you all very shortly, inshallah.
Inshallah. Ameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum assalam.
Youmna El-Sayed, award-winning journalist, and her media and journalism tour this August in South Africa, courtesy of Assalam Media. And with that, it's time for me to sign off. It's been wonderful being with you on this Tuesday morning, standing in for Julie Ali. So from myself and the team, yeah, Assalam Media, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.